And joining us now, the filmmaker Michael Moore. His new movie is entitled Capitalism, a Love Story. Michael, thanks very much for joining us.
Hey, Wolf, it is great to be back with you again. This is our first meeting here in a couple years since the big YouTube moment that we had with each other.
We had a moment following the movie Sicko, right. Which was obviously a very powerful movie, and I haven't seen this one yet. I'm hoping to see it in the next few days, but a lot of people saying it's very powerful as well, and it deals with capitalism, right?
Yes, well, yes, it deals with a system of legalized greed, and they call that capitalism now. I think capitalism probably used to mean something else a long time ago, but right now it's a system that is really no better than any kind of Ponzi scheme that guarantees that the very few at the top, in this case the richest 1% in America, have more financial wealth than the bottom 95% combined. The richest 1%'s on top of that pyramid, and they get everybody else in the rest of the pyramid thinking if they just work hard, they could get to the top of the pyramid too someday. But of course, there's only room for a few people at the top of that pyramid. I just don't think that if we're going to call this a democracy, that we should allow the economy to be anything other than run democratically. You and I should have a say in how this economy is run.
Supposedly we do by electing presidents and senators and congressmen, local officials. Supposedly we have a say in all of that, and we'll get to that in a few moments. But let's talk about, most people are going to see this movie who don't like you are going to say, you know what, Michael Moore has done pretty well in this capitalist or free market system. You become a fairly rich guy yourself.
Well, first of all, Wolf, there's nobody that doesn't like me. I don't know who these people
are.
If you have a list of names, provide me with those names, and I'll go to their homes and cook them dinner, and you know, perhaps they'll like me better. Your point was I've done well. Yes, for a documentary filmmaker, I've done very well.
You've done very well, and the allegations of you're being
why am I doing
hypocrite? Explain that, because you're hearing a lot of that.
Why am I against capitalism if I've done so well?
Right.
You know, isn't the question better put? And I'm not trying to do your job for you, but wouldn't the question better be, gee, Mike, you've done so well. You know, why don't you just kick back at the lake and enjoy life? Why are you caring about all these people losing their health care and their jobs and all that? You're not losing yours. You know, I wonder if there was like a Wolf Blitzer like 200 years ago who asked Thomas Jefferson or John Adams or George Washington, hey, you know, you guys are wealthy landowners. You've benefited from the king's system. Oh, what are you complaining about? What's this revolt all about? It's like, you know, sometimes people, even people who have actually had the good fortune and blessings in life, to not have to struggle with worrying about their health care, whether or not it's going to be here tomorrow or the next week. Sometimes those people actually are willing to take great risks and create sacrifices for themselves in the hopes that others will have it just as well. So
just to respond to the charge that either has been made or will be made that Michael Moore is being hypocritical, you're saying
I love the charge that will be made. I love it now that we're actually I have to respond to
it's going to
things that people are going to say to me in the future.
You've made a lot of money,
so I can do that.
Go ahead, respond.
Yes. What's the charge again that will happen?
Hypocrisy.
Hypocrisy over what?
That you made a lot of money in this free enterprise capitalist system, and now you're railing against it.
I know. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing that I actually, with a high school education, through my hard work and my ideas, have done okay, and I still want to do these things to help people who have it worse off than I. That I'm actually following through on the religious principles that I was raised with, that I will be judged by how I treat the least among us. And, you know, I think, I just think that's an interesting question.
Well, you call capitalism evil, right?
Yeah.
What do you want to replace? What do you want to replace it with?
I want to replace it with democracy. I want an economic system that is run with democratic principles and has a moral and ethical core to it. I want you and I and all the people watching to be able to have a say. And when you say, oh, we get to elect our representatives, well, you and I know the truth of that. That hundreds of millions of dollars are spent every year on lobbying Congress, and you and I don't have that kind of money to spend on that. So the average person doesn't get to see the things they'd like to see happen. Otherwise, the 75% who want universal health care would have universal health care.
What you're saying is we don't have a democracy.
I'm saying we do not have a complete democracy if the economy is not a democracy. You can't call it a democracy just because I get to vote every 2 or 4 years. There has to be democracy in the economy. There should be democracy in the workplace. What's wrong with democracy? Why do these companies hate America? What is it about America and our love of democracy where they just go, oh, that's not good. We think the 1%, the richest 1%, should be calling all the shots, should be buying the politicians, making the decisions. That's the kind of democracy they like, where the 1% control everything. It's not right, it's not fair, it's not American, and it's not part of our Judeo-Christian ethic, or whatever religion you belong to, Buddhism, Islam, all the great religions.
Whose economy
are opposed to the wealthy being in charge and letting the poor suffer as a result of that.
Which country has an economic system you like?
Well, I don't think that it exists yet. I mean, I think that we're talking about usually two ideologies, capitalism and socialism. One's a 16th century idea, one's a 19th century idea. We're in the 21st century. Can't we come up with our own system that meets the needs of this new era and has democracy at its core?
You're not a social. Are you a socialist? I'll just ask the question.
I'm a Christian, and I'm a heterosexual too, if you want to know that.
But as far as socialism is concerned, would some emerge from this movie saying Michael Moore is a socialist?
Oh no! When you walk out of this movie, first of all, you will have had one of the best laughs throughout this film that you've had in a long time, all at the expense of the people down on Wall Street, I might add. You're going to walk out of this film saying Michael Moore loves this country. Michael Moore is a true patriot. He loves democracy. Michael Moore is following through on the values that his parents and the nuns and the priests gave him as a child. He believes that he is his brother's keeper. He believes that he will be judged by how he treats the least among us in this society. And that's why I encourage, if there are people who maybe disagree with me politically on other issues, at least on this one, this film is not about Democrats or Republicans. In fact, I go after a number of Democrats who are also on the take. We're all in the same boat here, us Americans.
All right.
And we're going to sink or swim together.
The New York Times, in its review of the movie, said, among other things, they said this: in the end, what is to be done? After watching Capitalism, it beats me. Mr. Moore doesn't have any real answers, either which tends to be true of most socially minded directors in the commercial mainstream, and speaks more to the limits of such filmmaking than to anything else. Do you have real answers in the movie?
Yes. I talk about democracy in the workplace and how to reconstruct our jobs. I talk about how this economy could be controlled by the majority instead of the 1%. That's actually, the review in the New York Times was really an excellent review, but she's pointing out the limitations, obviously, of a 2-hour movie. I'm not an economist. I'm not going to be able to lay everything out in 2 hours. I make these movies in the hopes of engaging with other Americans, starting a discussion, a debate, whatever it is, so that we get ourselves out of the rut that we're in. We're in a place now where, here we are a year later, Wolf, after this crash, and there's still no new regulations. They're still running loose in downtown Manhattan. And
so let me ask you, if you're in a room, if you're in a room with the CEOs of Bank of America or Wells Fargo, Citibank, and you're in that room with them, what would you say to them?
I'd say, how come I've got to pay $2.50 every time I go to the ATM machine to that bank, and then you charge me $2.50? It's like $5. I want to take out $20, and you're taking $5 from me. What's that all about? Of course, we know what that's about. There used to be things called banks and tellers, where you walked in, didn't cost you any money to get your own money. It's just a little example.
But
of
ATMs are much more convenient.
Well, they're more convenient, and they're also cheaper than having a bank and paying tellers. They've saved money doing this. But I'm being a little facetious here. What I would say to the CEOs of these banks is, this is our country. It's not your country. You're supposed to be there to serve the public good. You're supposed to be there as a place where we can put our money so that it's safe. And instead, you've taken our money, you've taken our pensions, you've taken people's 401ks, and you've gambled with it and these crazy betting against bets and taking out insurance and credit default swaps. What have you done? Who do you think you are? We want our money back. We want our money back, and you'd better find it, because the people are coming.
What did you think of President Obama's decision to bail them out?
You mean President Bush's decision to bail them out, which President
Obama continued that.
Which, yeah, right. Okay, but let's
well, let's take
let's not revise history here, Wolf.
No, I've covered all this. Let's go back.